All right, great. We're going to go and get started. People kind of roll in. This is obviously going to be recorded, and we'll get that sent out to anyone who registered. But I want to welcome you all back to another Avail Spotlight webinar series. This is hosted by our customer success team. So myself, if you haven't spoken to me or seen me before, my name is Clay Watson. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Avail. But with me, Rob Snyder, our Customer Success Manager. And this month, we're going to be talking about related content. So this is still a relatively new feature to Avail. So we're going to kind of go through, we're going to talk about the problem. We always kind of lead these things off talking about the problem. Why did we introduce this new feature? What does it hope to solve? What are the workflows, best practices around that feature as well? We're going to start off the top with some updates and reminders, just so that everyone's kind of up to date on our latest releases and things like that, which is always helpful to know. We'll talk about the why behind this new feature, related content. Talk about common use cases, best practices. Rob's going to go through kind of a full start to finish demo of how to set up these relationships in Avail and how to connect these different pieces of content. And then we're going to kind of recap everything and then talk about some new and kind of exciting features that will help bolster this related content and make it a lot easier for you to use this and have your end users have this available in Avail in the future. So to start things off, let's talk about some quick reminders just to make sure everyone's up to date on the latest versions of Avail. So currently the latest version of the desktop is version 5.05. Our Avail for Revit add-in, Project Navigator, is 5.4.1, and the latest version of Harvest is 2.4.5. So those things are just a quick reminder of how to stay up to date. You can check your version of Avail and make sure that you've got that latest desktop version. Related content is exclusive to 5.0, so if you're using 4.6 or anything before that, you will need to upgrade. So it's something that kind of start things off. Make sure if your interface looks different than what we're going to be showing on the webinar, it might be related to that version. So make sure you're up to date there. So another thing I like to kind of start these webinars off with, kind of a theme in general, is looking at these features, how we're developing these things, how we're productizing them in the interface. And it's really this balance, right? We're trying to navigate this balance on content that's easy to maintain and it's also easy to consume, and providing that platform, providing an interface where you can really do both, right? So a lot of publishers, they're really kind of leaning towards, we need something that's easy to maintain and have content that's easily consumed by our end users. That's kind of a full circle experience. You want to be able to balance both. And related content, we're going to hit on both of those themes. We're going to talk a little bit about how easy it is, or make it a little bit more easy to consume different pieces of content using related content. And then we're going to talk about some features that are coming soon to help you maintain that a lot more efficiently and kind of automate some of the work that goes into establishing the relationships in Avail. So kind of keep these things in mind. I'm going to bring them up as we kind of talk through each of these slides and kind of go through this feature. But it's always really helpful to kind of understand this kind of big picture concepts that we're always trying to navigate. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the why behind related content, the problem that we kind of identified and that we were hoping to solve introducing this new feature. So we understood that there's a challenge, right, on trying to bring essential information together, right? That's always kind of been what Avail's focus has always been, is kind of bringing things together into one interface, whether it's Revit content, whether it's things from your file network, whether it's a URL web page, any kind of PDF documentation. Bring all of these assets together so that you have one full comprehensive library so that everyone can have access to these pieces of essential information. And there's also another challenge of just kind of keeping these things together. And then there's also making it very obvious and clear that they're supposed to be together. And so that there's always kind of this balance of these explicit relationships and implicit relationships. And we hope to introduce this related content feature to bridge that gap and make it clear and visible in Avail that these pieces of information belong together. They sit right next to each other in Avail with related content, and they're clearly expressed relationships so that it's easier for users to go to a piece of content. We're going to go through a demo here in a minute. To go to a family, if there's documentation that should always be connected to that family, maybe that's something that they're constantly referencing outside of AVAIL. Again, we want to bring that forward. We want to establish that clear relationship, and so that there's less having to go to another place for these essential pieces of information. So we're talking about common use cases. So again, this is relatively a new feature, but what we've seen so far are kind of these kind of three big use cases. So the first is connecting a sheet with a corresponding drafting view, a legend, or schedule. And so I put a little asterisk on this, and this is something that we're going to talk about, and Rob will kind of highlight this a little bit more. But when we introduce our next version or next generation of Harvest that is very, very close to coming soon, we're going to be allowing publishers the ability to create related content automatically through the Harvest process. So again, that's going to be for the Avail for Revit add-in. As you harvest your sheets, you'll have an option to create relationships to its drafting views, legends, or schedules, and so that automatically presents itself in Avail. We've already seen some firms actually do this. Go in, they've indexed or harvested sheets, and they kind of assign the drafting views. So again, kind of have these things side by side in Avail into kind of one viewable interface, so that they can, end users can kind of grab what they need from that sheet and then bring it right into their project. Another use case is connecting manufacturer content, such as like PDFs of specifications, manuals, certifications that again are always kind of tied, maybe implicitly or explicitly to this content, but maybe it's not clearly expressed, right? Maybe it's not always kind of readily available. And so related content, again, provides that great interface to bring those things side by side so that you can kind of see them all together. A third use case will be connecting content to a web page or a URL. So think of it as like we've seen some firms actually start to associate their Miro boards with certain pieces of content or things like that. And Avail has the ability to index URLs. You can index web pages. It's got a nice browser interface directly in Avail. So when they go to that piece of content, they can actually scroll the web page. They can browse without actually having to jump somewhere else. Okay, so we're talking about best practices. So if you're thinking about right now, like all the essential information that goes along with your library, it can be a little overwhelming. And so what we've kind of strategized here, kind of 4 steps to really kind of narrow your focus and make sure that you're kind of starting in a very strategic place with related content, because it can feel very overwhelming, feel like there's a lot to do, a lot of things that you need to connect. And so we want to highlight these kind of 4 things. So first is kind of really kind of focus on your common workflows. What are those essential workflows? What are you hearing from your team? They're always looking for this document or this certificate or this web page. Things that really jump out. Things that's going to be probably going to have a few examples right off the top of your head, just on your natural kind of workflow, your daily workflow, and what you hear from your team. That's probably going to be the best place to start when you're trying to kind of map out these relationships and how everything is going to fit together nicely. The second best practice will be kind of thinking about categories of related content. So in Avail, again, I'm gonna hand this over to him in just a few minutes. He's actually going to demo the steps to set up your categories and drag and drop related content. But it's always helpful to kind of have that outline kind of mapped out ahead of time, so that you do have some sort of structure, some sort of organization component around related content. So that could be a variety of different things. It could be very straightforward. It could be custom for your team. And again, we'll be able to show that in our demo in just a few minutes. Number 3 is starting with a small sample set, small data set, small pieces of information. Again, that's related to those essential workflows, those most common workflows, the highest number of requests that you get for this essential information to pull things together, and then really kind of setting up a staging channel. What we've seen is that it's really easy to, if something already exists in Avail, you can relate those things very easily. If it doesn't exist and it doesn't really have a home in what you may have already created with your channels, you can create a related content staging channel. If it's going to house documentation or PDFs or URL links that doesn't really need to be shared with the entire team. Um, you can actually just have the staging channel established, index everything that you would want to relate into this channel. And then you don't actually have to share the channel. So a key component of related content is that when you establish that relationship, when you drag those pieces of content together, you're actually giving that end user access to that. So even though you've got the staging channel, it may be just your own private channel just for managing related content. As soon as you create that relationship, your end users will automatically have access to that without actually having access to the source channel, if that makes sense. So it's always good to kind of start small, start with a small collection of assets or resources or information that you want to relate, set up that staging channel, get it inside AVAIL, and then you can start to kind of map out and take it one step further and start to map, okay, how do I want to, set up these relationships in a strategic way? And then also get feedback from your team. If you are not getting those requests on like trying to pull up PDFs or manuals or finding URL links and things like that from your team, go out and ask them, what do you all need? What needs to be surfaced to AVAIL using related content that's going to make your workflow that much easier, that much more efficient? Because it's all about that feedback loop. We survive on that as a software development team, and I'm sure your product team survives on that as well. So it's constant cycle of feedback. It's super helpful to kind of think about this strategically and incorporate that feedback into your plan. All right, cool. So this is demo time. I'm going to pass things over to Rob. I'm going to stop sharing these slides, and we're going to kind of go from start to finish, kind of talk about what the interface looks like for related content. He's going to take you through the steps on just the drag and drop nature of it, and how to set up your categories and bring things into Revit.
Thanks, Clay. I'll show you what it looks like and then three ways to make it happen. The first is doing it by hand, making related content by hand. The second way is doing it automatically. And the third way is pushing related content into AVAIL from a spreadsheet. Clay will talk about that. I won't show the third one. So what it looks like is, let's go to some families, for example, and I'll sort by has related content. And I have just a couple here, for example. So if I click on some people may not know this, if you click on the title, you get this big window that includes the preview, the item, and then below here, these are all the related contents in their different categories. So product catalog, if you click on it, you see this document. Here's a Revit assembly. And these are drag and drop. I'll show you that. You can drag and drop these straight out of the related content panel into Revit. Here's a website. And here is a approval document. So these can be anything. And another example is this door. And so we have some hardware, we have a sheet with door information, we have rendering materials, we have a couple of drafting views, we have a legend, a couple of manufacturer websites, and these are live. The link is there in the AVAIL browser here. So, and it just works there for your convenience. A schedule can be related and a product catalog PDF. So that's what it looks like. And again, they are drag and droppable into Revit, just like any other content in AVAIL. And so how do you make this happen? The first way is to do it manually. And so you can relate any content that's in any channel in AVAIL into any other piece of content. So I'll move this out of the way and let's go to this. I happen to have a PDF here, which I'll show. You can see it's a specification document. And so that's in a channel that I put there. And what I can do is for this door, I want to add, sorry for the spacing. I want to take it from AVAIL desktop and drag it over to this area. Now, you'll notice, depending on where you see this is product catalogs, this is schedules, and if I scroll up, there's other categories of related content. So I can drop it into any of the categories, or if I want to, I can, down at the bottom, there's drag content to add to a new category. So I can do that. And then I can choose from a list of existing categories or create a new category. This one's a specification, so there I've added it now as a specification, as you can see. And it previews just the same, and it's drag and droppable just the same. Okay, so I'll close that, and let's look at automating related content. So a good example is a sheet that has elements on the sheet, Revit elements like schedules and legends and drafting views. And when we, in the new harvest, here it is, about to be released. And this is the project navigator, AVAIL project navigator, but it has a what's now called a harvest mode built into it. And you hit this leaf here to harvest. So I go into harvest mode, give it 1 second. That was very snappy 5 seconds ago. There it is. Okay. So in harvest mode, I have settings. And in this settings box, which is simplified for those of you who've used Harvest in the past, we no longer have to index the RVT container file into a channel. That's no longer necessary. And you just open the Harvest mode in any container file you wish, and you set the settings. And AVAIL Harvest will remember those settings from session to session in your Revit file. And there's a setting here called related content, and you just turn it on. And then when it's on, AVAIL will automatically export the elements on a sheet as related content. And then you save those settings. And so the way that works is, so for example, I have in my harvest mode, I've gone to some sheets and I've selected 3 sheets and I've added those to a harvesting queue. And I can look at the queue by hitting this. And then when I run it, I will have sheets that look like this. Those are here. Sorry. Here. Here we go. I'll sort by sheets. And
It'll be in your harvest favorites.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I went to the wrong channel. Thank you, Clay.
Yeah.
That's why 2 heads are better than 1. So here's a good example of a harvested sheet. And when I open that in the previewer, you see the sheet, and then at the top is the sheet. And here are the drafting views, different 5 different drafting views on that sheet. And again, these are drag and droppable into Revit. So if I wanted to, drag that onto this sheet, I would just drag it and let it go. And another example would be, here is this one. And it has a legend and it has a schedule, a live schedule. So that's the automatic, the doing it by hand and doing it automatically. Both are supported. And then there's a third way that Clay will talk about. And I believe I've finished what I intended to say. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Rob. And I will open it up for questions. If you have questions, there is a Q&A option for the webinar, so feel free to post those and we'll review them at the very end. So I'll take over screen share on my side. And so again, what the automated portion of that, what Rob was demoing, that is not yet released. We are very close. We're doing our internal kind of QA testing as we speak. there will be kind of a preview release period that will launch here very soon. And then a full kind of production release right after that as well. So those things are coming. Everything manual is available with Avail 5.0. But it's important to clarify there. So yeah, so to recap, so we talked about a little bit of the story behind Harvest. We talked about the problem, finding all these kind of bringing all these essential information together, both explicit and implicit relationships, making them kind of readily available and easily defined in Avail. We kind of Rob just went over the manual versus automated processes that we've got coming. So to recap all of that, what we want to do is make sure that everyone kind of, again, downloads Avail 5.0 to have that initial related content feature where you've got that additional kind of drag and drop into that specific related content window with the categories. We want to also kind of make sure that we're highlighting understanding your common workflows, right? Going back to those best practices is understanding kind of what is essential for your team, what information is essential or most essential, kind of prioritize it that way, and what workflows are those going to be most beneficial for, and kind of clearly defining those once you get started. And then kind of strategize those related content categories that Rob highlighted. So as you're kind of adding those things, it's easily kind of quickly, you can create those right off the bat with your first piece of related content. And then you can start to assign those things as you kind of drag and drop more pieces together across your entire library. And then start small and get feedback from your team. Again, starting with that small collection of assets or resources that may be most important or most beneficial to your common workflows is going to be the best strategy to start things off. And then once we launch the next generation of Harvest, you're going to have some automated functionality that's kind of built in there too. And so to kind of bounce off that a little bit more, so we've got what Rob had mentioned before. So we've got two things coming that are coming very soon. One of them is a new channel tool. So if you're familiar with Tag.io or Tag Import as channel tools, we're going to be adding a new related content IO. And so this is a new tool to kind of help you establish these relationships, kind of a one-to-many relationship, specifically with a spreadsheet import. So you can think about it as kind of exporting all of your content and how it's related to other pieces of content. And so if you've established that, maybe that door family with its specifications sheet, you do that once, you can export the rest of the data in a spreadsheet and then just copy that across all the other pieces of content that may be applicable. So we've got that coming, and that's going to be a way to export your data, establish those relationships, import it into Avail so that, again, it's that one-to-many way of relating content that makes it a lot easier to maintain. And then the next generation of Harvest that Rob just demoed, you're going to have that option in the Harvest settings to enable that related content setting so that automatically as you harvest your sheets, you're going to get those elements as related content, whether it's drafting views, legends, or schedules. All right, excellent. So that covers the majority of the topics that we wanted to talk about today on related content, just giving you kind of a behind the scenes look, some of the thoughts that kind of went into establishing this feature in Avail. We'll open it up to questions. If you've got any, feel free to post those in the Q&A or the chat and we can jump in. So one of the questions they did come through is, will those categories created with related content be searchable as well? So yeah, currently those are not searchable. So they are just kind of reserved for the related content window. As you kind of organize that content, drag and drop those things together, it's really kind of for that specific interface. It's not something that's searchable across your library. But it could be something that you could use for tags if you wanted to tag your content a certain way based on related content categories. That could be something that is searchable. And then we had another question that came in for clarification. Currently, the only way to add related content is the manual, and that is correct. So yes, we have the manual option available with the 5.0 version of the desktop. And then we've got these kind of automated features to boost that kind of ease of maintenance coming very soon. Excellent. Well, if you have any additional questions, there's nothing else in the chat at this moment. Oh, here's one that just came through. Will there be any AI integration in the future to propose potential related items? So yeah, that goes along with some of the thinking around what we're kind of putting together along with workspaces. So it's really kind of a big picture project for Avail is really kind of using workplaces as or workspaces as a place to kind of bring all the assets of a project together. But that's an interesting take on related items. What we thought about currently is really kind of pushing towards building a suggestion engine that would kind of populate items that are related to what you're actually working on in a project, whether it's like a room or a building type, bringing assets to you related to what you're working on, but not actually relating them in the way that we're talking about in this webinar. But that is an interesting concept that we can talk to development with. Sure. I'm going to jump back to a slide. If you do have any questions, if you've come up in your journey with with related content, if you do have any questions that come up, feel free to reach us at success@getavail.com, or you can reach out to support@getavail.com. Both of those are great resources to send in your questions. If we need to hop on a call, one-on-one call, talk about what you want to do with related content, happy to discuss those things further with you. And then be on the lookout. We're going to be hosting some additional webinars around Project Navigator and a lot more to come for the rest of the year. But we'll be sending out some communication on the next webinar series topic, and we'll hope to see you then. Thank you all.